JJ, the madness is growing. It's everywhere. Brackets are taking over the world, are taking over the United States. Do you want to shed a little light on the madness?
I'm ready for basketball.
Well, let's do it. Let's
Okay.
do it.
Okay.
Welcome to Breakdown. SEC versus the Big Ten. And as we said, the madness is here. Interesting though, they probably shouldn't call it madness because collective madness is called sanity. Maybe we should call it sanity. The sanity is here, JJ. Let's talk some Big Ten SEC basketball. JJ,
How you doing?
I'm all right.
Let's
Will
hit me.
COVID be an issue in this year's basketball tournament?
Um, Not if it manifests itself in any of the prior strains. I think they take proper precautions for that. I mean, if there's the unknowns and the known unknowns. So as long as it's not an unknown, I think COVID won't be affected.
Well, that's good to hear, and I agree with you, and I hope you are right. JJ, coming into the tournament, we're just talking tournament in general right now, not focusing on the SEC. We're going to focus on the SEC and the Big Ten in a moment. But just coming into the tournament, what teams are hot? Who are some of the hot teams?
Well, you have your traditional powerhouses like Arizona, who is a one seed.
Okay.
You have your new powerhouses like Gonzaga, who is also a one seed, and the other two one seeds are occupied by a pair of Big 12 schools, the defending champion Baylor Bears and the institution that is the Kansas Jayhawks. I think obviously the one seeds are all pretty hot. That's how
Okay.
you get
That's
to be one
understood.
seed. But
Okay.
to go a little further in depth, the Vermont Catamounts, I believe, they won their conference tournament by an average of 37 points per game, which is the highest disparity for any tournament champion. So I would say that they're pretty hot right now.
I like that. Who's the first team they play in the tournament?
They play Arkansas. Hopefully, it's the last team that they play in the tournament.
WPS, Whoopie, I'll say so. Vermont and the top four seed plus Vermont. Any others?
And I think Iowa's pretty hot right now.
I would agree.
They just won the Big Ten tournament for the first
Yeah.
time in their history. They lost Luka Garza, the Player of the Year, and just seem to have gotten better. So there's a few hot teams out there. Tennessee won the SEC championship, tournament championship. I think that they're pretty hot. But the NCAA only gave them a 3 seed, so I don't know.
Indeed, indeed. I hope everyone out there has their brackets in front of them because we're going to talk a little bracket things right now. JJ, give me a few surprise teams or seedings in the brackets in the tournament.
A surprise team in the tournament would be Notre Dame. If you compare their resume to Texas A&M's, it comes up a little lacking. It's kind of a surprise that they made it to the tournament. They are really riding a early season home win against Kentucky. That's their
Okay,
signature win.
okay.
A surprise seeding, I guess, would be like the aforementioned Tennessee Volunteers being a 3 seed, even though their resume is better than Duke, who got a 2 seed, and it's better than Kentucky, who also got a 2 seed. So
I agree. I agree totally. Tennessee, they beat Kentucky twice this year, and yet and still Kentucky got a better seed than Tennessee did. I don't get it.
yeah.
I was kind of surprised about Michigan's 11th seed. That's me personally. I thought Michigan would at least be a playing team. They were not even one of the last four in. It seemed like they were solidly in the tournament, even though what did they do? They win 16 games this year in
Uh,
that neighborhood.
it's either 16 or 17. They lost 14 for sure.
Yeah, so I was surprised that
They're
they
the,
were.
they're the only third. They're only the third team to have lost 14 games and get an at-large invitation to the tournament.
Without a play in. Okay.
Yeah.
But when you're Michigan, those things happen. JJ, what about favorable and unfavorable seedings? Are there any that you want to talk that you notice when you look at the bracket? Any favorite team with favorable seedings or unfavorable seedings?
Well, outside of Tennessee having an unfavorable seeding, like we touched on,
Yeah.
I would say that Kansas has a pretty favorable um, matchup or favorable seeding. Their entire Midwest region um, is very interesting because Auburn has been reeling. They've lost to
They indeed.
Florida. They've
Yes.
lost. They've lost. They've sustained losses to Texas A&M and Florida, who are neither one of those teams are in the tournament anymore.
Yeah.
Florida doesn't even have their head coach, but that's something we can discuss later. Um, Arkansas beat them recently, so they're on. They can. Auburn is spent a long time of the year as the number one team in the country, so they actually have the talent to compete with anyone, but they're not playing that way right now. Wisconsin's best player, Johnny Davis, had a pretty severe ankle injury and did not look like himself against Michigan State. And in the Big Ten tournament, um, so that's their 3 seed. The 6 seed LSU, they don't have a head coach.
They do not, for good reasons.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier, you mentioned Florida coaches. There are a lot of coaches we can talk about, but I interrupted you. Continue with your favorable seeding and unfavorable matchups. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just continuing with Kansas, just talking about how their matchups, and I would say to complete that from their high seeds, Providence is another high seed in Kansas's bracket, and I think they're, according to Kim Palm, they're like the luckiest team. They're definitely the luckiest team this year, but um, I think like their luck rating was one of the highest of all time. So Providence they have a 4 seed, but they don't appear to be the most deserving of 4 seed. So I would say that Kansas has a cakewalk to. I mean, outside of Iowa, they have a cakewalk to the Final Four.
Okay, you mentioned the luck issue. I love to quote Howard Cosell. He said this during a Monday Night Football game back in the 70s, I believe. You probably wouldn't, well, I know you weren't even born.
Look at
But
that little monkey run. No, was that? Oh, okay.
Howard Cosell said, luck is a residue of design. Uh, in my mind, there's no such thing as luck.
Hmm.
That's just my own personal opinion. But
Okay.
apparently Ken Palmgren disagrees with me, right?
I also vehemently disagree with that. I think that's ridiculous. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. That's we have differing opinions on luck. Okay.
Well, I think the universe is ruled by laws and not by luck.
Okay. Well, maybe it manifests in itself as luck from my perspective.
Okay.
I'm sure that there's a reason for everything, but I just don't think.
Give me some more favorable or unfavorable matchups.
Well, I just gave you Kansas. Why don't you give me one?
Ohio State, Loyola, Chicago.
And you think that's a favorable matchup for who? Loyola?
I think it's an unfavorable matchup for Ohio State.
Okay.
Loyola.
Ohio State's lost 4 of the last 5 games. Like, do you think that they're underseeded? They shouldn't be a 7 seed. They should be higher, or do you think that Loyola?
I'm discounting the seeding period. I'm talking strictly on the matchup.
Okay.
I just think Loyola. They went in the first game of the season last year. Maybe it was the second game. They beat Illinois. Ohio State lost either the first or second game of the season. I mean the tournament. I'm sorry, tournament last year.
First game to Oral Roberts.
Okay, and and I just think that that's an unfavorable seed. I mean, unfavorable matchup for Loyola. That's just me. That's what about you? Was that the extent of the matchups that you want to discuss right now?
From a big picture perspective, if we're not gonna like concentrate on the Big Ten and the SEC, I would say, I mean,
Well, these are just favorable and unfavorable. I want to talk about your intriguing matchups as well in a moment.
I mean, I think Baylor got some favorable. I think they got a favorable path. So did UCLA at 4 seed. I think that's a favorable path for them.
Okay. Uh, let's talk about intriguing matchups.
Okay.
Before we get started on that, I'm just going to make a comment on my own personal opinion. For probably about the last 10 years, it was my position that the West Coast was not that relevant in college basketball. Although I'm obviously Gonzaga and Arizona and UCLA, they've been there, but I could never bet on the West Coast. This year, I have changed that to the East Coast. I think the East Coast teams are the teams that I would not bet on. But back to the intriguing matchups. Give me a couple of matchups that you consider intriguing.
Okay. And just for the record, last year there were at least four West Coast teams to make
I
the Elite
understand.
Eight.
I understand.
At least four.
I understand.
Okay. So maybe you might not want to take your betting advice from him. Is what I'm saying. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I'm gonna have my opinion for
That's fair.
sure.
That's fair.
I'm gonna have my opinion, but I just say most times I was correct when in the last 10 years when I discounted the West Coast, and now I'm discounting the East Coast. That's all I'm saying. But give me your intriguing matchups.
Yeah. So are we still talking about big picture? Are we on?
The big picture. We're gonna hit the SEC in a moment, but if it's just the SEC, that's fine too. But I should say SEC Big Ten. But if there are any intriguing matchups that you want to talk about, I can tell you what I find intriguing.
Yeah.
That's Michigan State and Davidson.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Obviously, that's in Carolina. Foster Lawyer's revenge game against Michigan State.
False, a little bit, so everyone knows Foster Lawyer. Last year he played at Michigan State.
And
He's transferred. He's found his niche at Davidson. He's playing exceedingly well. Davidson is playing exceedingly well. Michigan State has been up and down. I find that a very, very intriguing game.
Yeah, I think Davidson opened up as a favorite in that game. So.
Okay, they did? Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know if I find it that intriguing. I already mentioned the Ohio State Loyola Chicago game, but another game I find really intriguing is LSU Iowa State. LSU don't have a coach.
Yeah.
I say they don't have a coach. Their head coach is not, who was there up until yesterday or a couple of days ago, is no longer there. I find that intriguing. How would you expect them to respond to those circumstances?
LSU actually hasn't been playing particularly well. Anyway, they played admirably against Arkansas before Arkansas eliminated them in the SEC tournament. But I would expect Iowa State, I think, is underseeded as an 11th seed. They were the team that was perennially ranked in the top 10 for a lot of this season anyway. So they have the ability. Yeah, I just don't think that LSU is going to have the structural.
Well, I'll say this. Sometimes when things come to a team, they can either do two things. They can pretty much fold, or they can rally around it and improve themselves. And sometimes I've seen teams do that, but they can only do that, in my mind, for one at the most 2 games. But they can fold, or else they can rally. And it'll be interesting to see what LSU does.
Yeah, it is interesting. But I do think Will Wade is a good coach. I know there's been a lot of jokes in him being caught cheating and all of that. But I do think that he is a good coach, and I think I guess we'll know just how good of a coach or not he was when LSU plays Iowa State. But I was gonna say a lot of the interesting matchups between the first round matchups, at least, a lot of them involve SEC or Big Ten schools. Arkansas Vermont, I think, is a very intriguing matchup, just because Arkansas had won 14 or 15 games at one point, and Vermont has just been on a tear lately, and they just play with such a frenetic pace that and Arkansas has can have real issues if either Jalen Williams or JD Notae gets into foul trouble. They can become a completely different team.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So I just think that's an intriguing matchup.
You know what, I do too, but I said this last year about Arkansas and Colgate. I said that Musselman could name the point spread difference, and that wasn't the case. It was actually a close game. Arkansas did win their first game in the tournament last year against Colgate. But I'm going to say the same thing about the first game this year. I think Musselman can pretty much name whatever point spread he wants in that game. That's just me. I mean, I've watched Arkansas play. I've not seen Vermont play. I've looked at their record, their competition, and things like that. I still think they can name the point spread.
Okay, Arkansas is not that type of team to me.
Okay.
But speaking of Colgate, I do think that Colgate and Wisconsin would also be an intriguing matchup. I was watching a Patriot League coach on CBS when the bracket was revealed, and he was talking about put all your money on Colgate, put all your money on Colgate. And I haven't watched them that much, but that alone made me look into them and look into their stats. I have to see them play a whole game, which I have not done this year. But
Well, I'm sure that coach had some bias in that comment, but
well,
I think Colgate was better last year than they are this year. But go ahead.
that the only thing that was intriguing to me was Johnny Davis did not look good at all in his one game back from ankle injury, and he was like 3 for 16, 3 for 19. And if he isn't 100% right, I could definitely see that being a recipe for an upset.
Okay. Any other intriguing matchups in the first round?
USC and Miami have a couple of. It's a high octane, very athletic matchup. It's a 7-10 matchup, but whoever wins that could give Auburn some trouble. So,
Okay. So yeah, a question I was going to ask you about the conferences in general. Of the major conferences, which ones do you expect to shine in this tournament?
the Big 12, they have half of the one seeds. I mean, they're rated as the best conference in the country
Okay.
this year.
Okay.
So I'm gonna go with the Big 12.
Well, let's move now.
What do you think?
I really don't know. I've always thought this year. I've always thought highly of the Big 12. The Big 10 has the most, but they do not have a 1 nor a 2 seed in the tournament.
Nope. They only have one? They have 2 3 seeds.
Let's talk now strictly about the Big 10 and the SEC.
Okay.
Now that Selection Sunday is behind us, which is the happier conference, the SEC or the Big 10?
I'm gonna go with the Big 10.
The Big 10.
The Big 10 has no teams in the NIT, which means everyone that could have made the NCAA tournament did make the NCAA tournament.
Okay.
And I think you want bites of the pie, bites out of the apple. You just want an opportunity, and they have 9 opportunities.
Let's say the SEC and the Big 10. Which conference will produce the better results during this tournament?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Big 10. I don't think that the Big 10 is a great conference, but
So they won't lay an egg like they did last year.
I mean, I think that they could lay an egg like they did last year and still do better than the SEC. I don't think the SEC is very good. I think their conference is more about quality, and the Big 10 is more about quantity. The SEC got 6 teams in, and none of their bids were lower than a 6 seed. And they had multiple 2 seeds. So they were more about quality over quantity, but
So you're expecting the Big 10 to produce better than the SEC. Is that what you said?
yeah,
Even though the SEC had their higher quality teams.
they had higher quality seating, but
Right,
I don't like their matchups.
Okay, okay.
So I would expect them to do worse than the Big Ten. Yes.
Okay, during this tournament, JJ, there's going to be 63 games. 63 games, not counting the play-in games.
Okay.
If the Big Ten only lost to Big Ten teams, they would play 40 games.
Okay.
They only lost to Big Ten teams. So that's 40 of the 63 teams, 63 games. If the SEC only lost to SEC teams, they would play 29 games.
Okay.
With the Big Ten playing so many games, in my mind, the Big Ten would need to get at least 4 teams into the tournament, into the Sweet 16, in order for them to consider themselves a successful tournament. What's your take on that, on my comment?
I don't have that. I don't share that opinion.
Okay. So if they got one team to the Sweet 16, they won the whole thing, it would be a successful tournament in your mind?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, we differ on that.
Okay.
Let me ask you this question, and I think you've already answered it. Do the brackets favor the Big Ten or the SEC?
The way I look at it, it favors the Big Ten. Why? Because they have more opportunities to advance than SEC does. Because they have more teams.
So that's not the brackets. That's the number of teams. That's my take on that. But interesting. I think it's going to be an interesting game. Okay, let's talk about Big Ten, a potential Big Ten SEC matchup.
Okay.
Round one. They're surprising to me with 15 of the teams in the field. There's only one SEC Big Ten matchup in round one, potential matchup, because that's a play-in game. That would be Alabama, potentially Rutgers, if Rutgers beat Notre Dame in their playoff game. Let's assume that Rutgers win that Notre Dame play-in game. What's your take on an Alabama Rutgers game in the tournament?
That would be a very interesting game. I think Alabama would have the edge when it comes to the guards, but I think Rutgers might have the edge when it comes to the wings. Alabama has some young players, but some veterans. They have the transfer from Villanova, Javon Quinterly. Yeah, they've struggled to replace Herb Jones, but
They still have Shackelford.
they still have Shackelford. They have Quinterly. They have that 5-star freshman. What's his name off the bench? I can't remember his name, but he's a dynamic. He's an athlete. He's only like a 6'2", 6'3" guard, but he plays like a 4. He reminds me of Marcus Smart actually. But yeah, I think that would be a must-see TV. I think Alabama would be favored, but Alabama has shown the propensity to lose. They can lose to anyone, and Rutgers also can lose to anyone, and they can beat anyone. So I think that would be a very interesting game, and I think Rutgers would try to slow the tempo, slow the pace down.
Well, JJ, as you have said many times, Alabama focused a great deal on the 3-point shot.
Mm-hmm.
If they're on, Alabama wins.
Yeah, that's true.
If they're off, Rutgers win. That's my take on it. But JJ, let's talk about potential second round games. Potential second round, there's only 2 matchups potentially in the second round, which still, to me, is a surprise that it's so few potential matchups. Those potential matchups could be Michigan and Tennessee and LSU and Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the LSU-Wisconsin potential matchup. That would mean that LSU would have beaten Iowa State and that Wisconsin would have beaten Colgate for those 2 teams to play each other. How would you see an LSU-Wisconsin matchup?
I mean, that depends on how healthy Johnny Davis is. He's like a heliocentric offense. I think Brad Davidson. I get Davis and Davidson can conflate sometimes, but Brad Davidson can carry a lot of offense in Davis's absence. But if he's just going to be a decoy, I would expect. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, I guess I would expect LSU to win, but LSU doesn't have a
You
head coach.
expect LSU to beat Wisconsin if Davison is in the 100%?
I mean, I can't remember the last time situation has occurred where like the head coach of a playoff of
I don't know if
NCAA
it's
tournament
ever.
turn. I mean, the last time a NCAA tournament team fired their coach, I can remember with Michigan. Bo Schembechler.
Well, he didn't fire. He went to another school.
Bo Schembechler fired him.
That's true. Well, he had gone to another. Well, you're right.
I was reading a book about it.
He had agreed to stay on to the tournament, but Bo Schembechler would not let him stay on. But he had already committed to go to I forget the school.
Arizona State.
Okay, Arizona State.
Yeah, but then Bo Schembechler fired him, and then Michigan won it all. I mean, I think it just depends. You have to know a lot about the LSU locker room. It's hard to.
I agree. It's really hard to see
you.
what LSU, how they're going to play, given the fact they just lost their coach, and I'm just wondering once the season is over for LSU, how many of those players are going to be bailing out of LSU like a sinking ship or something, mice on a sinking ship. I would expect they would lose a lot of players. The other potential SEC Big Ten matchup would mean that Michigan would beat Colorado State, and I think that's going to be a really interesting game as well. Michigan would have beaten Colorado State, and Tennessee would have beaten Longwood, and then we would get a Michigan-Tennessee matchup.
And Vegas has that favored to happen. I think Michigan open at 2.5-point favorite. I think they're up to 4-point.
Against Tennessee?
No, against the game that they're scheduled to play. against Colorado State.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
the Tennessee Michigan matchup is favored to
I
happen
got you.
in Vegas
I
now,
got you.
even though Michigan is the 11 seed.
I would pick that as the favorite as well myself.
Yeah, it would be a rematch of the Sweet 16 from 2012, back when Conzo Martin was there. I think it was the 2012 Sweet 16. It might have been the 2011. I can't remember, but it's been at least a decade. Yeah, that'd be a good matchup. Tennessee's been playing as well as pretty much anyone outside of the one seeds. So
You know, Tennessee, they did they beat Arizona or did they lose Arizona in overtime this year? Maybe they lost in overtime. I can't remember. Tennessee, as I said, they've beaten Kentucky twice. They've beaten Arkansas. They've beaten a red hot Texas A&M. In my mind, right now, Tennessee is rolling, and I mean actually rolling. Uh, Michigan might have the advantage on the inside, but that would be the only area where I would give Michigan an advantage in a Tennessee Michigan matchup. And actually, if that were to happen, I would put Tennessee winning that game handily. That's just me. That's just me. The Wisconsin LSU matchup, I just can't see LSU beating Wisconsin. I really can't. I really can't. Okay, but JJ, we're gonna get into this a little bit more detail, and I don't want to. I don't want to, go over, take too long. But I want to go SEC team first. They got six teams in the dance
yeah.
in the tournament. Of those six teams, tell me the ones that you think could be exiting after round one or round two.
Well, yeah. For when it comes to SEC, I know it's a cop out to go with the lowest seeded teams, but
Well, it's not a
um,
cop out. I mean, it's all about matchup. So just tell me the matchup you think with the SEC teams that are going to be out.
well, I'm gonna go with the lowest seeded teams, and I would anticipate Alabama and LSU struggling, especially with LSU being coachless.
Okay.
So that's the team I would expect to not make it past LSU.
Okay. So the other four teams could potentially uh, make it to the Sweet 16. Those other four teams would be Arkansas, uh, Kentucky, Tennessee, and Auburn.
Yeah, and I like Auburn and Tennessee to do that the best. I don't share the outlook about a Michigan Tennessee matchup with Tennessee being able to handle them. I don't think I think it would be a close game if Michigan didn't win, but outside of that, I do think Tennessee is playing better right now than any team other than one seeds, like I said. So I would have them going. But Tennessee and Auburn, I think, are the likeliest teams to make the Sweet 16 on the SEC. I'd say.
Okay. Okay. Uh, so you would be picking Vermont or UConn to beat Arkansas?
Yeah, I think both of those teams could beat Arkansas.
Okay.
I don't, but I could see both of those teams, and I could also see either San Francisco or Murray State beating Kentucky. Specifically Murray State. I know Murray State. I have a lot of friends in Kentucky.
Two Kentucky teams would be playing each other if that were the case.
Yeah, Murray State. I have some friends that went to Murray State that want to play Kentucky more often, but Murray State has a vision of their program, and they don't want to do like the when you're a mid major, you have to do. Uh, you can either do the 2-for-1 thing where you only get
Right. Two roads and one home.
yeah, and I think that they don't want to do that, or they don't want to play. The other thing Kentucky's offered is to play them on a neutral site where Kentucky would have the majority of the fans.
I would buy into a neutral site. They're gonna be playing on a neutral site if they get to if they play each other this year
Yeah, if they both
in the
make
second
it,
round.
if they both make it, so I could definitely see Murray State upsetting Kentucky, specifically with the volatility of their guard play. Kentucky has just they've had issues with health when it comes to their guards and productivity. Productivity.
And I'll talk really quickly about Murray State. They're a 7 seed. Kentucky is a 2 seed. Typically, more times than not, the 7 seeds are reserved for major basketball type conferences. Most of the smaller conferences, they start at 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16 seeds. Mary State is the only small conference team out there this year that's better than a 12 seed.
And they put in a lot of hard. Well, outside of San Francisco, but they put in a lot of
San
hard.
Francisco, oh, you're right, they're a 10 seed.
They put a lot of hard work into that. They have three point guards in the NBA currently. They have two which were drafted in the lottery. Isaiah Cannon is an NBA player. Cameron Payne just went to the NBA Finals last year with the Phoenix Suns, and he was drafted as a lottery pick. And John Morant is a NBA MVP candidate right now. So I think that they've behind the scenes, it's been over a decade long process of getting to this point.
So the team in the SEC that you think will go the farthest, JJ, let me know that. And then we're going to get into the Big Ten because I don't want to focus too long on just the SEC. But what team in the SEC do you think will do best in this tournament?
Tennessee, I have them making it to the Elite Eight and seeing Illinois there. So I think Tennessee.
I would like to see Tennessee and Illinois.
Who wouldn't? That'd be an orange on orange matchup that no one would want to just take their eyes away from.
Okay, I'm going to circle Tennessee as JJ's top team. So you see them going to the Elite Eight, but you do not see the SEC getting beyond the Elite Eight. It sounds like, yes or no?
I mean, the Big Ten didn't make it beyond the Elite Eight last year. Michigan was the only team that made it to the Elite Eight. So
the SEC didn't make it beyond the Elite Eight, but they got to the Elite Eight. But you do not see them, or you see them getting into the Elite Eight again this year.
Only 4 teams make it to the Final Four. It's hard to accommodate all the conferences.
That's true. That's very much true. So Tennessee is the best among the. Let's talk Big Ten. Big Ten got 9.
They
count them 9.
Yeah.
They could potentially win 40 games if they only lost to each other.
They could.
Are there any Big Ten teams you see going home after rounds 1 or 2, not making it into the second weekend?
Oh yeah, there's a bunch of teams.
There's only not. Oh, what Big Ten teams would you say would not make it beyond the first week?
Well, so there's 3 teams that are double-digit seeds out the Big Ten: Rutgers, Indiana, and Michigan. The only one that I would say I'd feel really good about is the one that's playing the highest seed. Michigan playing Colorado State. Honestly, I can see Indiana or Rutgers not even making it past Dayton. Wyoming. I haven't watched a lot of Wyoming, but I know that they have a dynamic player who can take over the game, which is what can which can lead to upsets in March Madness, as we know.
Well, even assuming Indiana did win the playing game, they got Mary State, and if they won that, they would have UCLA.
They have St. Mary's.
St. Mary's. St. Mary's. You're right. Which still, I would St. Mary's would be the favorite.
They beat Gonzaga.
Exactly.
So they could definitely beat Indiana.
And then, they potentially would have. So I can agree with you with Indiana going home early. And you said
Rutgers playing Notre Dame.
Rutgers?
Yeah.
What did you say potentially if Rutgers played Alabama, you had Alabama winning that game, right?
I said either it could go either way. I don't have a definitive take either way.
Okay.
I think it would just be a very exciting game. But yeah, I mean, the Big Ten has a bunch of double-digit seeds, so there's a few teams that should lose, but it's not even just the double-digit seeds. I mean, you have the Foster Lawyer revenge game against Michigan State that Davidson opened up as a favorite against, and then Loyola and Ohio State are comparable schools, and then Wisconsin doesn't have their best player, and apparently Colgate is a team to fear, if at least according to the coaches in their conference.
I'm gonna go back to Michigan State for a moment. You mentioned them playing Davidson, and there's no Curry on that Davidson team this year. But Michigan State, I'm gonna say Michigan State wins that game. Would Michigan State be the school that ends Coach K's coaching career? Because if Duke beat Cal State Fullerton, they would have to play the winner of the Michigan State Davidson game.
Yeah, I think that's what they designed in mind. I think that
You mean the selection committee?
yeah, I mean
Why would
they do make like 100% of their money off of this one tournament. So I think and we know that when it comes to college basketball, it's not the players that are the headliners, the big names, it's the coaches. Those are the people that have name recognition for the casual fans. So Izzo is one of the 10 coaches that has name recognition, and Coach K is the most famous basketball coach in the world. So I think that they did that intentionally. I think that they would like to, because Izzo's only what 3-10 against Coach K.
I think so.
So he doesn't have the greatest record against him, but that'll still bring in enough casual viewers. I think not only would Michigan State be able to knock Duke off, I'm going to predict that they do.
Okay.
If they make it past Foster Lawyer and the Davidson.
I'm going to reverse my question a little bit and ask you to give me the Big Ten teams that you predict will get at least to the Sweet 16.
I'm going to pick 3.
Okay. Only 3?
Yeah, there's only 16 teams.
They got 9 teams in the tournament.
Yeah, but 3 that's 9 out of 68 is less of a percentage than 3 of 16.
All right, give me the 3 teams that will at least get to the Sweet 16. I'm gonna write this down.
Illinois, Purdue, Iowa.
Illinois. I gotta follow my bracket here. Purdue. Where is Purdue? I'm looking for Purdue. Oh, they're in the East. Okay, so Purdue. So JJ, I'm gonna even move a little bit further because you just picked Purdue and you didn't pick Kentucky to get to the Sweet 16. I'm gonna talk about some potential Sweet 16 matchup.
Okay.
We
can hurry. We can do this in like the next 3 to 5 minutes. We have to wrap it up, right?
Okay. Purdue, Kentucky.
Okay.
Sweet 16 potential team. You got Purdue beating Kentucky. If that were to happen.
I don't have Kentucky making it to Purdue.
Okay.
But in the event that they made it to face Purdue, I have Purdue running Kentucky off the court, and you can quote me on that.
It's on tape right now. Okay, Alabama, Michigan State, a potential Sweet 16 matchup.
Yeah, I mean, I have Michigan State beating Notre Dame probably in that one. I think. Okay. But yeah, they'd be. I don't know. That one.
Tennessee, Ohio State, if that were to happen. In the
wait.
South.
I'm sorry. No, I don't. I was wondering what I had Texas Tech coming. Yeah, I don't have.
I would have Texas Tech too, but just in the event. In the event. It was Michigan State and Alabama. Because we're talking Big Ten, SEC.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Well, Tennessee.
Alabama is showing up that night.
Tennessee, Ohio State.
Tennessee.
Okay. Wisconsin, Auburn. I think. I would like to see that game.
I definitely don't have Wisconsin. I mean, I don't believe in Wisconsin.
Okay. Well, JJ, before we close, and we're going to talk a lot about this more, if you would give me your final 4, and then we'll get out of here. Or have you even gotten that far?
Oh, I didn't want to spoil it because I didn't even say whether or not I wasn't going to say if I thought Illinois or Tennessee was going to win the matchup. I wasn't going to do that one.
You want to wait till our next broadcast to give you your final 4?
Yeah, I mean, why not? Let's keep the audience waiting, sure.
I'm going to give you mine right now.
Go ahead.
I'm going to give you mine. I got Arizona in the South. In the West, I do have Gonzaga.
Okay.
In the West, it's Gonzaga. In the South, Arizona.
Very chalky so far.
In the Midwest, I would go with Iowa. Coming out of the Midwest.
Yeah, I think they're going to be a popular pick.
And then in the East, I got Kentucky. Okay, there we have it. JJ, we're going to do this again next week. We're going to break it down. We're going to review the week that was, and we will preview the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8.
It's the best time of year. I'm looking forward to next week. But
The madness is upon us. Or should I say the sanity? Anyway, WPS, Woo Pig Suey.
have a good one.